everyone, and thanks for joining us for the Superintendent's Report. I'm Carol Birdsong, and joining me for our conversation is Williamson County School Superintendent Jason Golden. As we record this, we will be discussing the February school board meeting that just occurred last night, and then we'll talk about a few other topics that we want to discuss. First of all, we like to start with celebrations, so we will do that. And we had 31 reward schools that it was just released yesterday, actually unembargoed from yesterday, and we're going to be publishing those names in Focus that comes out today, and then we'll celebrate them at the school board meeting in March.
Well, that's right. For a number of years, we have, through the state process, had a reward school program. So one great thing for us related to that is we get some longitudinal information from year to year to year on our student success and our school success, really school by school. Last year we had 29 schools get that status. The year before that we had 24. Now we're at 31. We continue to set new records with that. And really the state measures two main things. One, they measure student achievement at the school. And then second, they measure growth. And we really are working on pushing that envelope. We are a very successful school system with high-performing students. In so many ways, we're regarded as being the best, but we know we need to keep on working on that. As one quick example, we actually benchmark ourselves off other similarly performing districts in other parts of the country. But for TCAP and our end-of-course tests that the state administers, we are compared to those who are in the state with us. One interesting thing about that, when it comes to growth, the way the state does a formula, our students, our high-performing students, are compared to other high-performing students with growth. So in a lot of ways, some of our schools are even competing against each other for this status, the reward school status.
And I think you mentioned that there's no way that all 52 schools would, based on the formula, there's no way that all 52 schools could be reward schools in one given year.
It's hard to know for sure. We'd have to really dig into that formula, but when so many schools are high performing and they're in the same district, it does get that much more difficult for everyone to do that because their growth is compared to each other. So it would be a challenge for every single school to have that status. From a percentage standpoint, we're really proud of what our schools are doing. But from a student performance standpoint, when you drill down to individual students, we know that's really what matters. And we know that those individual students represent that aggregate number. And that's one of the reasons the reward status is so important to us, because it really represents those individual students who have worked with their teachers to really drill down and grow each year in a way that in some places can be rare.
Let's talk about a few more little celebrations here. We'll start with athletics first. Congrats to the Thompson Station Middle School boys basketball team, because first ever in Williamson County, they earned a state championship this year, so congrats to them. On the academic side of things, if you will, we actually have, for the first time ever that I know of, and I've been here a really long time, 2 middle school students who earned a perfect PSAT. I've never had a middle school student, and to my knowledge, do that. Now, it is a different test. It's not the PSAT that the students take in high school. It's a different test, but yet so impressive. But we also had 7 students earn a perfect PSAT score, and then we had 14 students earn a perfect ACT score.
You know, one great thing about students taking those tests in middle school is the stakes are low. The students can take the test really for familiarization. And for a few of our students to just knock the top off those tests already at middle school is really encouraging for their future. At the sophomore level, typically it's sophomores and some juniors take the PSAT. That is the test that is used largely to identify national merit scholars. We don't have a lot of evidences of national competitions when it comes to actual academic scoring because the state TCAP test is not aligned to any other states. But ACT and SAT are the most clear indicators that we have. So that when a student takes the PSAT, and has the potential to get a National Merit Scholarship. They really are competing nationwide. The National Merit structure are those massive scholarships that really differentiate our students. You know, we talked just a minute ago about our schools setting records for the number of reward schools. Likewise, we continue to set records with a number of our students who are National Merit Scholars. So those perfect PSAT scores for our high school students is an indicator of that. Our students at the middle school level doing well is an indicator that the work our middle school teachers are doing, the work that our elementary school teachers are doing to prepare our students is a really great thing.
So I'm going to give you a hint about something. The national merit information is coming in, and I believe in next week's In Focus, we will have that all compiled and ready to go out. So we'll keep you posted on that. All right, good stuff. All right, one last thing in celebrations, and then we'll get on to some other things. We did have 22 students who earned recognition by the Tennessee Theater Educator Association and received an All-State Award. And that could have been in acting, musical theater, tech and design. And so congratulations to them. And now I have to give a shameless plug out to all of our theater programs, because it's spring musical season, and if you have not been to a Williamson County middle or high school musical, you are missing out and you need to go. And let me tell you, next week Brentwood High School opens their show. They are doing Beauty and the Beast. Page High School is doing its show. They're doing Little Mermaid. Centennial High School is doing 12th Night, and they've added a musical element to it, so that should be interesting. And so I encourage you all to take advantage of and go check out the talent that's out there on our Williamson County Schools stages.
And you know, Carol, it's pretty neat how emotions can be brought out with musicals. Just as an audience member watching that, I think back to a year or two ago, I visited a middle school play, and the skill, the talent, the ability to draw the audience in, even from some of our middle school students, is pretty amazing. We've been talking celebrations. Just in the last couple of years, our art students have enjoyed a year-end celebration similar to what we have traditionally done for our athletes. And at that event, we actually have some of our finest performers, award winners, perform for their peers in the spring at the end of the school year. And I know some parents have gotten to participate in that. That's a really neat thing. But you mentioned 22? 22 students getting All-State designation in theater. Our mission statement says that Williamson County Schools will provide a supportive environment that challenges students to excel in academics, athletics, and the arts. We started talking about academics. We mentioned the middle school athletics team. I'm glad that you mentioned arts, because we really are looking to challenge students in all those areas. We know that students participating in extracurricular activities can make a difference for them in so many ways. It prepares them better. It gives them more opportunities, because those who are looking to work with them at the next level see that activity. But I tell you, in real time, while students are in school, having those activities helps them grow in ways that really, truly can't be measured. So we're excited for our students to participate in that. For them to get these awards is amazing.
And by the way, the Frist Art Show has opened, and that is showcasing art from all of our schools. And I believe it runs through the first full week of March. And so if you want to go check out some student artwork, the Frist has Williamson County artwork on display. So congrats to those students who had their artwork selected.
The Frist Center in downtown Nashville is what you're talking about.
Yes. All right, let's get down to some business. Let's talk about some of the actions that the board took last night. Let's talk about Let's talk about some money stuff. Family tuition rate and school fees. Two different things, but let's talk about the family tuition rate and why we have that.
So Williamson County Schools is the county school system, and we provide instruction to anyone who lives here. We serve all comers. newcomers. We do have a family tuition rate that is for someone who is outside the district, but the key for that is we set the rate based on county expenditures for those who might be moving in the middle of the semester. For example, somebody has a contract on a house and they're not scheduled to close till September. We want those students in on day one because they're going to be moving in just a couple of months. And so the tuition rate's based on that. So we will actually charge the tuition for the semester. Parents pay it. If they actually do move in within that semester, they're reimbursed. But it really sets that rate as kind of that standard to make sure, because our county government has to spend so much of its tax money in supporting our students based on the state pay structure, it's important to us to make sure that those county expenditures are covered. Again, we reimburse families when they move in if they have a contract on their house. So the standard is you must be a Williamson County resident to attend schools here. We do, however, recruit teachers in this difficult job market, teachers and staff outside our county. And so we also have that tuition rate for full-time employees. It's been a really good tool for us to recruit some of the best teachers, some of the best staff members to our county as we continue to compete with our neighbors for that limited talent pool.
Okay, very good. School fees, always a topic of discussion at a school board meeting. School fees are voluntary, even though it says a fee. So talk about why we have those fees and what it means to have a voluntary school fee.
So traditionally, for years and years, parents have been asked by school systems across the country to pay a fee for blank class, maybe $10 for a workbook or something like that. Tennessee has a structure for that. They actually call them school fees. For instructional time, during the instructional day, any fee isn't technically a fee, even though the state calls it a fee, because no one has to pay it. So our reality is we have particular costs for courses that we ask parents to give us, ask for donations. We've had really good parent support for those fees through the years. I think this year we received somewhere around $900,000 total to help supplement the work that we're doing, offset some of the costs that our taxpayers contribute to help us maintain and grow our excellent schools. But it is a donation, even though it's called a fee. And I will tell you, at the board meeting last night, we had some detailed discussion about that. Some questions were raised that we're actually going to do some digging into. What are the tax implications of that? If the state's calling it a fee, but in reality it's a donation, what does that mean for families who are giving us the funds? Can they write that off in their taxes? As I sit here, I don't know the answer to that. But we're going to do some digging on that. So that's the instructional time during a school day fee. Because we are a public school system, we provide a free education to anyone who lives here. Now the other piece of that is extracurricular activities. The state also has a structure for fees for extracurricular activities. So if you think about your sports teams, drama, trips, etc., there's a substantial cost associated with that. We don't structure our tax funds to pay for much of that. We actually pay our staff out of our budget. But for travel, for uniforms, for some of those activities, teams either have to do fundraisers or charge a fee for participation. The example I gave last night was golf. We don't own a golf course, so there are greens fees that are associated with our golf teams participating. So there are some of those expenses. Likewise, even though we do have the capacity to require those fees as a condition of participation, we have a lot of booster support and PTO support where if someone can't pay that fee, then we have a very good confidential process to make sure that our students can participate even if they can't afford it. So the theme from all that, Carol, is thank you parents, thank you grandparents, thank you businesses for supporting our extracurricular activities. Like I said before, you can't underestimate or over-describe the value in those extracurricular activities. And because our community supports us, we're able to do those things.
And one thing I believe is the formula for our success is that parental and community involvement. Talk just briefly about the $13 million that our PTOs and boosters raised and gave back to our students and schools last year.
So last year, our PTOs and booster clubs raised a total of a little over $13 million district-wide. We have 52 schools. We have about 42,000 students, and across the entire district, $13 million were raised. Dollars were raised. Dollars were raised for supporting those student activities. It's incredible. We couldn't do it without our parents. We've already said that, and we say this repeatedly. We meet regularly with our PTO leaders, usually about once a quarter, and I feel like sometimes I'm gushing with thanks because we need to, because the work that our parents do is incredible. I actually mentioned a story to one of our reporters where I was at Ravenwood High School last week, and I ran into a volunteer in the office who I first met when she was a elementary school PTO president. So our parents follow their children throughout the school year, supporting them and supporting our teacher work. That's a big part of our success.
That's right. That's right. All right, let's move on to another topic. This is something that we have been working on Williamson County Schools for years now, and we are continuing to work on it. Let's talk about bullying and harassment, and talk about the protocols that we have in place, where we've grown, but where we still have work to do.
Well, thank you, Carol, for that. And what prompted you mentioning this was we have a public comment time at our board meetings, and a student and her parents came and spoke at the board meetings. And they're able to share some things that we can't. She can share what she's experienced, and she can share what she has seen, but we can't share personally identifiable information about students in a public setting. We can't talk about some other student. But she shared a bullying experience that she brought to her principals. And I mentioned, and I want to mention again, that we work very hard on setting up processes that create some consistency in addressing bullying. So I want to give some specifics. Number one, our principals all talk to their students at the beginning of the school year about the expectations they have for student behavior. Number one, they expect decency from their students for each other, and if it doesn't happen, the consequences that they're going to experience. As part of that, we have worked very hard to make sure that students know they're empowered to report things. When I first became superintendent, I had some conversations across the district with different student groups, and one key theme I heard from some of those groups that really hit my heart was there have been some times where they haven't reported things because they didn't believe something was going to get done about it. So we're working on changing that culture. I think we've had a lot of success with that. The fact that a student and their parents came to our meeting indicates to me that they recognize that when we see issues, we can grow and we can make change. So I'm gratified to know that they had the strength and willingness to come and speak. I'm not sure that's always been the case based on what some of our students told me a few years ago. But we investigate every single one of those. Another example of what we do is when a principal gets the report, our human resources department is notified, and they track that investigation related to an allegation of bullying, an allegation of discrimination or misbehavior on the basis of race, of sex, of religion, and they are a resource and an assist to the principals to make sure that we are applying our standards district-wide consistently from school to school.
Yeah.
We've seen some success with that. This is a human effort. It takes a lot of work from all our folks, from those who've experienced behaviors against them, to those who are doing those wrong things. In addition to our professional staff, to make sure we create an environment that those expectations are for good behavior all the time. But when a child fails to live up to those standards, they get an appropriate consequence and some tools to make a better decision next time. Final element of that, Carol, I want you to know is sometimes the investigation doesn't result in somebody being happy, whether it's somebody who perpetuated the rules violation or somebody who's reported it. Sometimes those investigations don't conclude what one person or the other wants them to reveal. But what I can assure everyone of is those investigations are done appropriately, they're done with the oversight of professionals, and they are based on the facts that are determined from that principle. We're going to do the right thing within that human effort. And so I want everyone to know we're going to continue that effort, and it needs to be talked about on a regular basis. If an inappropriate term, a race-based term is used, we're going to address it. We're going to give a serious consequence for that behavior. We're also going to try to set up a structure where those students know that that we're giving them tools to make a better decision next time.
Well, and I would always also say that if you haven't had the opportunity, we've started working, our communications team's working with Whitney Chambers Woods, who is one of our school counselors, and she's based out of Fairview Elementary School. And we're doing a video series with her. It was her idea, and she's a fabulous, fabulous school counselor. It's simply called Stop and Think. And you know what? It doesn't matter if you're a 3-year-old or if you're 100 years old. Watching those videos, they can remind us of things. They can give us some tools to use, and in helping to create a culture of kindness, of tolerance, of acceptance, and I think we all can grow in that area.
And Carol, making the right decision on the front end is going to be so much more valuable than responding to a consequence after a bad event happens. So it's great that our counselors are working on that. I do encourage folks to look at those videos, that Stop and Think.
Stop and Think.
There's actually some physical hand gestures
Yes.
that are some good mnemonic reminders for us as well. So thank you for mentioning that.
That's right. All right, let's talk about 3rd and 4th grade retention laws, because, well, I really can't say too much positive about it, so I'm going to let you talk.
Well, it's interesting that last night we had a number of public commenters asking our board to pass a resolution opposing voucher legislation that the governor is proposing. As part of that, we talked about accountability. Although a piece of legislation hasn't been filed yet, it looks as if the accountability for someone using those dollars to go to another school, whether it's private or a homeschool umbrella, will not include some accountability measures that the public schools have. And it triggered me mentioning an accountability measure that I just think is wrong. Our professionals think is wrong. The research shows is wrong. That our structure right now at the state level is if a student in 3rd grade or 4th grade doesn't show some state-defined growth or performance on 3rd grade English Language Arts TCAP, then they must be retained in that grade. Now, 3rd grade under the law during the legislative session last year included some new methods for students in 3rd grade to not have to be retained. It included a summer school program. It included tutoring if a student showed what the state is describing as adequate growth. So there are some...
I want to interrupt right there, because we did not find out those details until very late in the year, and we began TCAP testing in April and do not get results back until May. So just putting that in there. I'm sorry.
So thank you for that. Let's go down that little rabbit trail. The legislature passed this and mentioned adequate growth and set the burden on the State Department of Education to define what adequate growth meant. But the law went into place before adequate growth was defined. So some of our parents in 3rd grade with their 3rd grade children had to make decisions on, do I send my child to summer school? Do I take the tutoring route, which includes after school tutoring throughout the school year, and then hope that my child shows adequate growth on the assessment either at the end of the summer or at the end of this school year without knowing what adequate growth was? So the legislature put something in place. The executive branch at the state level had to create some standards based on the legislation. Our board actually met with our legislators in January in preparation for this coming legislative session, and that was one of the themes we talked about. We have seen some examples of the legislature passing something and then requiring some additional work to be put in to implement the law, with an overlap in time where the implementation doesn't have time to go into effect before the law goes into effect. I specifically asked our legislative contingent, consider that when you're passing a law. Make sure that the window of time between when you pass the law and it gets implemented allows for the State Department of Education to put all those structures in place so that our parents don't go into something not knowing the playing rules. So that's one issue that you mentioned. But at the fourth grade level, right now, as we sit here recording this, there is no avenue for a fourth grader to advance to fifth grade if they fall into one of those categories on the test, other than showing adequate growth, which was just defined by the State Board of Education this month. So a parent had to make a decision back in the fall on some interventions for their fourth grade student, and now adequate growth has been defined, and so now some parents are second guessing themselves because the adequate growth formula is complicated.
And it's one test, one day in a child's life. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, that's right, and there's a lot of research that indicates that retaining a student is not good for them. And that's the research. Let me tell you about our experience with this. We have interventions on a daily basis for students. Students are identified as based on any deficits they may have, and we have what we call RTI time, response to intervention time, where students are split into groups, and those students who need some additional intervention to address some deficits at that grade level get that intervention. Over the course of a student's career, we have had some incredible success in growing them so that they're ready when they're high school seniors to graduate. Retention for those students is very rarely the right thing to do. There might be some developmental issues where in consultation with a parent, a principal decides that's the right thing for a student, maybe at the youngest grades. But the impact of a student getting retained based on one test is so negative. And our interventions that are in place are so robust that it rarely makes sense to retain a student. Right now we have about 3,100 fourth graders, 3,100 plus fourth graders. 134 of those are at risk based on this coming TCAP of having to be retained. And they won't know until the test results come back. Those students are the students I'm worried about. Are they going to be 19 when they're seniors? Are they going to be so impacted by this that they don't want to graduate high school? When we know that based on our graduation rates and our success rates and our placement rates for colleges, for jobs, for technical schools, that we can have success with them if we keep them on their grade level and continue those interventions. So, it's a lot of words, but ultimately we've asked our legislators to include some other paths, some other avenues for students if they happen not to show that adequate growth this year. We know some legislators are talking about it, and we want to continue to encourage them to do that.
Okay. I want to add just one more thing. Yesterday, I was at an elementary school talking with a school counselor, and she had been going into classrooms and meeting with third grade classes in preparation with some test taking, skills and coping mechanisms. And she said they are so stressed out. And, her goal was to help them not be. It's a pretty high stakes test for a third grader and fourth grader.
Well, when third graders are using phrases like my phonemic awareness is not good enough, those things make me nervous because they don't need that detail about the nature of reading. But because we've been facing this, we've been having those discussions with parents, and parents have shared their fears and concerns with their children, and suddenly we have a high stakes test at the elementary level. We talked about SAT and ACT when we started this conversation. Those are high stakes tests, and they're appropriate because they open up scholarship dollars for high school students, for students who are 16, 17, 18 years old and mature enough to handle that high stakes test. It's a rare third grader who has all those tools that a 16 or 17-year-old has to address the stress of a high stakes test. And my goodness, Carol, even those 16 and 17-year-olds get nervous at the test. So it's in so many ways it's a concern, and we're going to continue to talk about it and ask our legislature to give some other avenues for students to advance.
I know adults who get stressed out over the tests as well. All right, we're going to end this discussion talking about the career fair because we are looking for great teachers. So we have a teacher career fair coming up. It's going to be on Saturday, March the 2nd at Ravenwood High School. Talk about who we're looking for.
So we do an annual career fair for our teachers. We're looking for teachers. We actually also have a classified career fair at a different time. Classified are those support positions that don't have a teacher's license. On March 2nd, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, March
Saturday.
2nd, Saturday, March 2nd, in the morning at Ravenwood High School, we're going to be recruiting our teachers. One great thing for prospective Williamson County Schools teachers at this fair is every single one of our schools will have a booth. You don't have to say, oh, do I send my resume to this school or not? You can have those one-on-one conversations in just a short window of time with principals and assistant principals from across the district. You can find out if your skill set and your licensure meets a specific need, a specific position that those principals have. We have had a lot of success with this. We actually have some signing bonuses available for some of those teachers. Our principals have the capacity to make a job offer that day to our teachers. It's been really neat over the years. We've actually had some local food vendors donate food. So there's even a little bit of snacks here and there that I've seen. I don't know about this year, but I have seen it in the past. I'm going to give a shout out to Sonic. The local Sonic folks, Chuck Sugg has actually donated food in the past for this event. We mentioned the community. We mentioned our PTOs. Our corporate support is pretty incredible in this community as well.
And we do love Chuck. So anyway, well, with that, if you have friends or family that are qualified to be a teacher in Williamson County Schools, send them on to Ravenwood on March 2nd, beginning at 9 o'clock in the morning, 9 to 11:30. That is our time for now. Thank you very much, Superintendent Golden, and thank you for joining us for the Superintendent's Report.